All right, Alex, you're on.
So
um,
that was a fantastic conversation on the webinar. Thanks for putting it together on the air.
oh my gosh, it was Elias and Valentine and just brilliance. I mean, it's just so awesome to witness black excellence, especially in this space where folks, there's always this kind of rhetoric that there's no talent, and when we hear just the thoughtfulness, the depth, um, Torrent, they're very modest people who I just every time I speak with them, I'm just like, whoa, I learned something big and new. And Alex, we've had conversations too around this topic. I don't know, Elias. I can kind of keep you guys on here for folks who have Android who still kind of want to keep the conversation going, if that's
Yes.
helpful.
Yeah,
Would
that will
that
be very helpful. Yes.
Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. All right. So Alex, I'll kind of let you facilitate the conversation and see if there's any kind of hand raisers or folks who have any thoughts in terms of AI. Just out of curiosity, do you guys um do you guys currently uh um fear AI and the impact on Black lives, or are you excited about the prospects for us, the people of color? Someone has their so forgive me. I am just learning this clubhouse moderation aspect. Kwanzaa, please go ahead. You're on. Hey, Kwanzaa, you're on. Kwanzaa, I think I got you. I think you're on deck to speak. I can see your hand raised.
Hi, thanks. I'm sorry that I didn't realize I needed to check accept the invite. Thank you. Very informative and passionate presentation earlier. I just had a general question, which was, are there any companies out there doing it well in terms of inclusive AI right now?
I don't know if someone else has an answer to that question like Valentine, but in my I haven't found that definitely not the largest companies, right? None of the largest companies. It's more maybe companies of medium size. I've seen companies like Glassdoor, for instance, be very, very deliberate in trying to bring representation into their company, right? As it operates as a whole. And that also flows into, say, the data science group. I want to believe and hope also represented, right? But with the large companies, the simple answer is large companies, I can't recall any of them that has more than 2% of their population that has Black people. And then women, in terms of women, it tends to be definitely less than 30% of people. And with that kind of representation, I don't think there's any way they can build inclusive AI. I've given up on that.
Yeah, I think I agree with Alex. I think there hasn't been a lot of success as far as I know. But the good thing is, I think there are a lot of people who are truly committed to changing this, and there's a lot of discussion and progress on the sidelines. But in terms of success stories, I haven't heard of any yet.
Thank you. And I just wonder, what about regulation? So, for example, as far as clinical trial diversity, there's been recent guidance. It's not law, but guidance to encourage, that manufacturers increase clinical trial diversity. So I'm wondering, on the policy regulatory side, what's being done.
So the AI is new, and I think regulation and government hasn't really caught up, to be honest. it's still very self-regulated, and the people who actually identify issues with systems have been independent researchers who are just concerned about these issues. So I think recently I saw a congresswoman write a letter to one a large company CEO, telling them about how they care about fairness in AI. So that was the first thing I've seen, and it's I think we're getting there, and we just have to stay loud about it until these things actually start getting regulated more.
Yeah, in my view, I mean, I'm one of these few Black people in the AI industry with some influence, and I can share that. But in my view, I don't think regulations can change much at the moment. The people who are creating the regulations don't know as much about the technologies, or they tend to be still the dominant group of people who are building technologies. I could say mostly white Caucasians, right? White males, or if it's coming from the East, it's mostly Chinese people. And so they also bring the same level of blind spots and bias as they think about regulations. That's one. Number two is also, I haven't seen these regulations come with a lot of almost like laws and requirements, instead of suggestions on what engineers can do. And those just not as effective, right? My organization, Alliance for AI, has been working to advise on a number of policies, especially in the African space. So, like I say, in the African continent, a regulation document has been drafted, but even that, I could see that it wasn't as holistic. It wasn't covering all it needed to, just because the people who are all writing it are not as informed. So nothing is as effective as increasing representation. It's more Black people involved at the many different parts of the value chain of AI.
Thank you.
I think this is why we need to be involved in this dialogue early, because the less that we're excluded from this dialogue, or we feel kind of less than or have the imposter syndrome, the more we're excluded from these decisions. And as AI accelerates, we have the potential to scale hurt. So this is part of why we feel like, the timing of this dialogue is really important. The fact that, as people of color, we need to be involved in shaping the direction that it's going in our lives, in everything from healthcare to jobs and the prediction of jobs to criminal prediction, to really so many facets of our lives. So this is why, we can't sit on the sidelines and think, oh wait, I don't have a CS degree, or I don't necessarily know about data. I think we can approach it. I think to Kwanzaa, your question, do you need to have a CS degree to be able to shape this conversation? In my opinion, I think that we as people of color just need to be more informed, and that's why I really appreciate you, Valentine, for kind of breaking it down, and Torin and Elias for breaking it down to us and making it more accessible.
Yeah, I agree with your analysis there. I don't think you need a CS degree, and actually, I think what we are learning is that AI is part technical science, but also part social science, and we really need to start thinking more about it as a social science.
When you mentioned something, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, when you mention about social sciences, it's really interesting because it's actually one of the areas that was supposed to form part of our discussion about the variable development in coming up with the machine learning models. Of course, it looks like based on the algorithms that have been failing, in kind of ending up to be biased with Black people. The development of the variable seems to be focused on the statistical aspects. Which kind of data do we have? How much is it? Which are the columns that we are talking about? But if we have that sociological perspective and you go beyond the statistical or the data analytics perspective, then I suppose that I think it's very important to think what is in our society, what is the reality. And for instance, I was seeing one of the bias that was coming from the health sector, that a predictive modeling on a certain a support program for maybe treatment of certain diseases is done based on the cost of health that an individual spends in the health sector. So that means the low-income community, which to a large extent is the Black community, will be biased. They will end up being biased from the beginning to the end product of that model.
Yeah, this that comment actually reminds me of an excerpt from an article I read a couple of days ago. It was saying, I'll read. It says that this bias in AI happens because we build artificial intelligence systems without examining the other interconnected systems of inequality, right? And we end up creating an environment where artificial intelligence exacerbates existing inequalities like introduced because systems of racism, sexism, you name it. I thought that was a really powerful statement when I read it, because many researchers, when you ask them, they'll tell you, how can AI be biased when we're using data? But that data is coming from a society that is built on bias and discrimination, marginalization of people. And so when you build things into automated machines, then you're automating discrimination, and that is discrimination on a whole different level that we're not prepared for. It's like you're automating the next stage of Black discrimination, and that does keep me up at night.
Yeah.
I think that aspect of automating bias in machines is very important to emphasize, because we're talking of technology that our computers are coming in to perform tasks that can be performed by human beings, and even in a better way than human beings are doing. So that means if we're talking of bias, then the machines will be doing better than we do, which is quite pathetic. The human thinking or the human intelligence or the human is comprised of emotions, empathy, and such. But machines do what they've been told to do. It can really be some sort of a crisis.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one nuance as well about AI, which is related to what you just said, Elias, is that we call it artificial intelligence, but really it doesn't use the same processes as us humans, as you say, like empathy and humans are pretty deep, we are pretty deep, but these algorithms reduce us, reduce whatever the problem they're trying to solve into something simpler and solve that. So it's pretty much an approximation of the real world, and that approximation is obviously wrong in some way. I think someone was quoted to have said, all models are wrong, some are useful, and so this approximation, they're inherently wrong, and then the question is, how wrong are they? And them being wrong, who is going to get hurt, right? I was actually just running. If you play around with queries on search engines, and you just go to images, you will be really amazed by the biases that these models have. So, for example, if you search starving person, you might it's it shows you just how biased these models are. And if you just play around with a few queries, you start to see, oh my God, most of these AI models really are just, they take news articles and they sometimes just represent the extremes. When they think of a region in the world or a group of people, usually they look at the extreme, what's extreme in that environment, what's extreme in that region, and then it paints it as such, and that can have pretty bad effects.
So I think, Elias, you brought up a really interesting point, which the issue is on controllability and profit generation. If that is what we optimize for, then yes, we will. In some cases, there's some replacement. There's things that machines are awesome at. There's things that humans are awesome at. And then there are things that humans and machines working together are just superb at. Okay. So it's not necessarily the machines are smarter, more capable. It's that we're optimizing our work. If we decide to optimize our workforce towards what machines are better at instead of what humans are at, then yes, we will have a problem. But then the other thing is the fact that decision makers, those who are in power, and I know we were talking about this in terms of healthcare, legal, and organization, those people have to care about asking why and really address those issues. If you have somebody like that sheriff who had those 5 kids who did some shoplifting crimes, say we should lock them up. Actually, I have a quote: "We should put them away for the rest of their lives so that the rest of us can be better." Or when you have leaders that come in and consider you a super predator, or any of the other biases, any of the other statements that they come with, and they're not choosing to actually sit there and say, hey, listen, there's a problem. Let's explore the problem. Let's figure out what exactly is going on, and then have the strength to address it. Then we will always be here, no matter how many Black people we hire, no matter how many models we create, or the computational speed ups that we have, because it's not going to get enacted.
Completely agree.
And the other thing is, we have these prominent figures in AI. One of them was on Twitter, and he says, if you flip a coin 10 times and it comes to 4 to 6, AI ethicists would say that the coin needs the biases. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. If you ignore AI ethicists, you ignore the fact that 1, AI ethicists are probably much better statisticians than that. And 2, if it is 400 to 600, yes, the coin has an issue. And if using that logic, you're telling me the casinos are wasting their money by buying debiased dice, because heaven forbid on the craps table you get a set that prefers 5 and 2 and 4 and 3, right? Because you're going to be rolling 7s all night. So by that logic, he should open up a casino and put up his own money, because I don't gamble, but give me a few minutes with those dice, I'll play.
Victoria, please go ahead. Victoria, please go ahead and speak.
I think one of the things that came about this was I was a mentor and co-organizer for a hackathon, and the winning team that I mentored was looking at the Compass algorithm. And there are people who are in charge who just don't understand how AI works, that it is not this magic wand that oh my goodness, we used AI and now everything is right. And we're fair now, right? Like the Compass algorithm was terrible, and the data that comes in, it's not necessarily that the data is going to be bad. The data is going to be terrible. That is what ETL is for. That is why we do all the cleanups that we do on noisy or sparse or dirty data, to get something clean enough to actually make some meaningful insights on. So complaining that the data is the issue is only part of the issue. The other part is that, hey, the people who are cleaning the data, are they aware of the issue? One of the people who was looking at it is not from the country, and he rightfully looked at the data that was based upon a set of context that he was not aware of, that showed that, hey, maybe Black people are committing lots of crimes. And what you find out is that the data just showed the biases within the criminal system, justice system, where Black people were being arrested and charged a lot more than their white counterparts in that area. So he wasn't even aware of this. How are we going to A, expect our computers to be aware of it? And then B, how are we going to rectify it? Well, it turns out that you can normalize that data. There are tricks that are out there that are easy that are, I wouldn't say easy to put forth, but that it takes knowledge of what is going on, that not just contextual knowledge, but how we got there in the first place, how do you mitigate it, and then the data, the mathematical understanding of how to what's that word? Circumvent it. And then you have to change your questions. Okay, like if we stop asking.
I mean, there has to be like an awareness of the bias, right, as well as the knowledge on how to fix it. Victoria had a question. Just give me let's just let her chime in real quick. And Victoria, are you able to see? I'm trying to let you speak. Are you able to speak?
And by the way, Wandia, that was actually part of the solution, helping the judges see the bias. But yes, explainable AI.
Yeah, I think Victoria, I don't know if there's a way to accept the...
You should see like an alert that says accept so you can speak. Is it not coming through?
Yeah, I think she should chime in whenever she's able to do that. But from my end, I just try to get in the zone of, would love to from the other presenters, co-hosts, and people listening. What are some ideas of things that people in the audience can do today to at least move things in a better direction? Love to hear thoughts.
Part of what I love about what Torin, go ahead. Part of what I love about what Torin has outlined is A, like, there's identifying the bias. B, there's like the technical ability to fix it. But I think the more that we are aware of it, the more that we can hold the feet to the fire, right? Because often we're just told, oh, it's science, it's correct. Of course it works, and we kind of blindly believe that it works. But being aware that the data is not clean, and that and with the presentation that Valentine did, like, we're more aware of what goes into creating that information, and so we can start to be kind of activists when people say, hey, this is the right information. We can start to ask questions. We can start to frame the questions that hopefully shape the conversation. Does anyone else have thoughts? Just raise your hand and chime in. Did we lose Victoria?
Yeah, and then Valentine had something as well.
Valentine?
Oh yeah, we know we're waiting for.
Please.
So I think I agree with Wandia. Let's start with just educating ourselves and being more aware of this, and not excluding ourselves from these conversations, because I think what they've seen is people care about very different things, and there are some people out there developing AI models who really don't think about fairness much. And I think for those who do, it's really on us to champion this and talk about it and educate ourselves and give feedback, and also just bring each other to these conversations, encourage involvement in AI, encourage participation, and be able to identify when a system is biased against you, so that you can actually articulate it and address it and make sure it doesn't impact you negatively.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just to add on, and it's a connection to what.
Like it's you, you get yourself, your friend, your people you know, your kids, sign them up for programs. They should learn about this. The world is definitely becoming about this. You can't escape it. We use all the tools. We use Google, right? We're using Clubhouse right now. Right. They're all built on AI, and so everyone you know, you should maybe find a place for them to go learn more and get involved. They don't all have to be AI researchers, not at all. But it's a social science. You need to learn what it is about, where it gets applied, how it applies to your life, and be informed when someone's telling you, trying to deny that their system is biased and unfair towards you or people who are like you.
Elias, do you want to conclude for us? We had set this up till 10:30. This was amazing.
Okay. Let me just. I don't know if I'll be in a position to conclude or will do. Or someone is talking.
I wonder if it
sorry, hold on,
experts like yourselves to link up with groups like the Congressional Black Caucus and developing legislation and policy.
I think we've done that. We've tried.
So I do a lot of that work. My organization, Alliance for AI, has worked with the likes of Partnerships on AI, the UNDF Groups, the Smart Africa Initiative, the Africa Union. So we do a lot of work on the policy side. And even with the Black Caucus, right, along with Turian, who's on the other side with NVIDIA, we've engaged all those groups. But there's just not much all these groups can do when they write their policy. First, they don't accept everything that gets proposed, right? And then secondly, they don't seem to have been able to call the large companies to order, right? You remember when Mark Zuckerberg was invited to speak for Congress, was that 2 years ago? Nothing happened afterwards, right? So we'll continue to push the policy route, but I don't see how actions actually change until we have more informed Black voices in all of these rooms, from the engineering rooms to the product rooms to the marketing rooms to the hiring rooms to the leadership and policy table. It doesn't change until we have more and more and more of us in those spaces.
Policy doesn't change unless the leadership wills it.
That's my view. I'd love to hear what others think.
Torren mentioned something really nice that
working,
hold on, Valentine.
along all those lines.
Sorry, Valentine.
Trying to do something on the policy side.
Oh, sorry, guys, you were on mute.
Yeah, I think it is important to get some form of oversight, in terms of where AI is going, because one thing about our models right now is they are very concentrated in very few people. So the people developing models that affects most of us, right, would be just a few people. So for example, let's take, so I heard that IBM had to stop its face recognition program, but when they were still doing it, you could imagine maybe it's 20 people creating a face recognition system that's going to be used, on like 1 billion people, right? That's going to affect 1 billion people, and it's 20 engineers, and this concentration is really it's a tricky situation to find ourselves in. So I think that's where I think we need to start taking AI seriously, because I think most of the threats now are digital more than physical, and we really need to take it as a first-class issue in the world, and if at least some policy, and some guidance out there on, practices. I know some companies are creating what they call these AI principles, but no one is enforcing them. And so that's, I think companies policing themselves is probably not going to yield a lot of fairness if what they need is profit more than other things.
Yeah. So just adding on to that, like policy doesn't change unless your leaders are brave enough to make that change. At the end of the day, they are the ones who allow these things to come through. And I've recently seen it happen. And I've seen places where it's been imbued in the culture by itself. It works, it's wonderful, it's beautiful. We need to amplify and exemplify more of those types of leaders. But currently we have leaders who, have their biases, and we sometimes it's just beyond us. So focusing on public awareness works to do an outcry, and then we'll force them to change. But like Alex said, we have literally gone that route and gone to government, gone to municipalities. We've shown them, we've seen them. It takes somebody there to be brave enough to say, this is going to be my mission and champion the cause.
We have set up this discussion for this is phenomenal insight. We were supposed to go for half an hour. We went a little bit over, but we just really appreciate the insight. I just wanted to see if Elias, you want to kind of wrap it up with some concluding thoughts for us, and we want to keep the dialogue going. So I think what we'll do is we'll kind of start a series around this topic and get more people involved and more people informed. So do you want to go ahead and wrap it up for us, Elias?
Oh, if you don't mind,
yeah.
Just as people, in terms of, if you don't want to follow on the topic, we do have a newsletter that we send out through Alliance for AI. I think if you click my profile, you can just find the link. So you can join that every 2 weeks. We share new information on what's happening with Black people in AI across the world, and you also learn about maybe AI clubs that we create. Right, we're thinking of. We dream of forming impact clubs in at least 1,000 schools across the Black diaspora. You can imagine what a force that could be if we're able to achieve that. So it'd be great to get some of your support. Thank you, dear.
Awesome. That's exciting.
Okay. If you want to reach out to us for more information regarding this webinar, and maybe if there are any other engagements that we can do together. You can write an email to expert@reactionpower.com. Expert, the word expert @reactionpower.com. Also, you can find us at Reaction Power on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, YouTube, and other channels. If I introduce another question, maybe we would go more than we were expecting to be. But at this point, I would really like to thank everyone for participating in this conversation. I think now that we met here with some people that we've not met before, it's a start of something big that we can work together. The way we worked together with Torren before, I'm looking forward to work with the likes of Valentine and other people that are on the team, sharing ideas, brainstorming, and perhaps developing something new. I thank you so much for your time. You have a good day, you have a good evening, and you have a good night.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your expertise. This was just phenomenal panel. Thank you for your Black excellence.